So there's this beautiful idea going around. Um, it's beautiful on paper, to be quite honest. But in reality, it's actually not a good idea. It's an ideal utopia for Africa as a whole. I mean, it will be, like I said, it'll be the best thing to happen to Africa if this thing had to happen. Ideally. But realistically speaking, on an everyday basis, I don't think it's going to work. Maybe the first 2 months, the first year, while it's still new, people might get along with one another. But I can promise you that with time, we're going to regret that decision. And the idea that I'm talking about, this ideal that I'm talking about that's been circulating around Africa, it is the idea of having a borderless continent. The United States of Africa. Like I said, it's a very beautiful idea on paper. Because then that Africa unites. Africa is one. We stand together as one. We stand for each other. We're sticking together. Yes, on paper. But in real life, it's not going to work. And there's a lot of evidence to prove that it's not going to work. I personally prefer a visa-free continent over a borderless continent, because with a visa-free continent, there are still rules and regulations that we need to follow. And that will still bring order within the continent of Africa. Because one thing that is very, very certain is that a borderless continent is a lawless continent. There's too many people. There's too many people that are free to roam around as they please. Sharp, you might say, no, we're going to put, as a continent, we're going to elect leaders or have the countries no longer be independent countries and just have, I don't know, emperors like they used to have back in the day where we have, is it the king and then the king had emperors? I think that's how it was back then. Where Pilate was the one and then Pilate had other people ruling other cities and stuff like that. Maybe we say we do that, but still there's too many people moving around freely. And you can't control that. Let me break down the differences between the two stances here, which is a borderless country, a borderless continent, and a visa-free continent. And then from there, I can further go into why I believe a visa-free continent makes more sense than a borderless continent. And why am I speaking on this? Is because, like I said, it's circulating in Africa. And it's something that Gaddafi, the late Gaddafi, I think it's Gaddafi, that's one thing he wanted to do. And that's something that's still ongoing till today. It's the discussion is still being had till this day. It's a long-term ideology for Africa to have a borderless continent. And I'm going to give you my reasons why that's not going to work. Let me break down first the difference between a borderless continent and a visa-free continent. With a borderless continent, what that means is there is no national borders between African countries. Right now we have borders. When you go from one country to one country, you have to go past the border lines. They have to check your papers. Do you have a visa? Do you have a valid passport? So on and so forth. And if you don't have a visa, you go back to your country. If you have a visa, you come through. And then within a visa, you're there for a certain amount of days, 3, 4, 5 days, and then you have to go back to your country. In a borderless country, there won't be none of that. Borderless continent, there won't be none of that. Citizens can move, live, work, and settle anywhere without immigration control. That's just chaos. If people can move around freely as they please, settle wherever they want to please, work wherever they want to please, so can people also do crimes wherever they want to please, and then run away once the crime is caught and that person is never caught. Once the crime is done and that person is never caught, because now they're on the other side of the continent. This will also mean that Africa will now become one giant political and economical space. How then do we control the GDP? How then do we control logistics, the insides and outs, trades, it just becomes a mess. Like I said, yep, you might have the ideology of having one king and many emperors to run sectors of the continent, but how realistic is that? Is the question. Africa is a very massive continent. A lot of the other continents actually fit in Africa. The map makes it Africa look small, but it's actually massive. Here is a visa-free continent, my ideology in which I would second. A visa-free continent would mean countries keep their borders and sovereignty. Passports are still required. Citizens can travel freely between countries without applying for visa. But the government will still control who can live, who can work, who can vote, own land, or become permanent residents. There is already order in that. There's already laws put in place in that. You can't just wake up one day and be like, today I'm going to go live in Mozambique, and literally just go to Mozambique and settle. What's going to happen now? We're going to have an extremely populated area of Africa. Let's say the richest part of Africa will be extremely populated because everyone want to go there. And then the less civilized and built-up countries are going to be empty. It's just not going to work. A borderless continent is just not going to work. A visa-free continent will still give the presidents of the country authority and still be able to gauge the population of their country. How many people are in my country? How many people are actually residents of my country? How many people are actually visiting my country? You can control that. Now, with that being said, I'm going to come to what's happening in South Africa lately.